Hey guys, this is the homework video for week number 4. And this first topic, so I tried to pick topics this week well, I didn't try to pick, they just ended up being topics that were, I think, a little bit more easy for you to try to start on your own. So if you did try them yesterday, you may have noticed you were able to do some of them. But this first one is a review for sure. You're completing a table and finding and then graphing it. And realistically, this is not the most efficient way or quickest way to make a graph. And later in the year, we're going to talk about a much quicker way than making a table. But for now, this kind of follows along with what you've done in other grades, right? Really, this 2x here is the function. And it's telling you to take your input and multiply by 2 every time. And that tells you your output. So 0 times 2 is 0. And then 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 4 is, I'm sorry, 4 times 2 is 8. And then 5 times 2 is 10. So you have this table, and then you come in here and you graph it. So the first point was 0, 0. That's easy, right in the center. And then 1, 2. And the nice thing is I only have to put 2 on here, because if I try to click the next point, it'll take that other point off. So I only put 2 points on any 2 that are on the line. So this was 2, 4, which is also in my graph for my table. So pretty straightforward here. I'm adding 1, so the functions aren't even that hard. Negative 2x plus 19. So negative 2 times something plus 19. So it's that rule again and again and again, and then I'm plugging in the numbers that are there. And then these math problems are just, you're numerically figuring it out. Negative 2 times 5, and then add 19. Which realistically, at this point, I think you guys can use a calculator for this kind of math, right? You're in 8th grade. We're not necessarily practicing this all the time. And I think that basically stays about what it is. So I'll let you work through those. I think they'll be all right. Interpreting points is not very hard. It's just sometimes you have to just pay attention to units and where things are at. So it gives you a graph with the situation, and then it asks you a question about it. So how many days has it been since Troy last set his watch? If the watch is 40 seconds behind. So if I'm looking at the graph, it says days since watch was last set versus how many seconds behind it is. So if I'm talking about 40 seconds behind, I just need to go to the side that has that seconds behind and find 40, and then trace my graph to the point on the function and find out what the input was in this case, which is 5. So it's been 5 days and his watch is 40 seconds behind. So it's just interpreting points, making sure you understand that idea of units and how they match up and all that. After driving 50 miles, how many miles does he have left? So miles driven is 50, which means miles left, 20. Okay, and then these you have to fill it in, but still that same idea. How up to how many cakes can Martina bake in order to have 5 tablespoons of vegetable oil left? So if I look, number of cakes versus tablespoons of vegetable oil remaining. So if she wants to have 5 left, looks like she can make 5 cakes. All right, so I think it doesn't get too much more difficult than that. Just asking about interpretation. Let's see, all the way up to 75. So I'll let you go through that. Find values given a graph. So I'm going to, if you look at these again, it's not that challenging. I mean, it's basically what you were doing here, except it doesn't have any kind of situation around it, like with a kid or research papers or number of hours. It's just a graph. So if it says the x value is 8, then you go to where your x values are, which is 8, and you find where it is on the graph here. And then it asks you, so I plot the point, right? So plot that point, and then put in the y value, which is 10. X value of 3. So x value of 3 means the point's there, and that has an output of 5. X value 5, y value 4. So these aren't even very hard, huh? 3 gives me a 9. Ooh, so a different shape, but still the same thing. X value 4 is here, which means the graph's there. which has an output of 4. So I think you can handle this one pretty easily. It's all the same, basically. Just making sure you know how to read a graph with points. And then the last part is just a review of what we were doing last week with rate of change. So let's do this. Okay, so this is that graph that I was just looking at, and it's asking me to find the rate of change, basically. So just find the slope of the line. So I just wanted to be able to draw on this to show you. If I'm looking for the slope of a line, basically I'm looking for points where the graph is. So here, here, and here are the 3 points that are visible on this graph. And so the idea is that there's a constant rate of change to get from this point up and over, and to go up and over here is the same size triangle, because that rate of change is the same step, because it's a constant rate of change each time. And if I look at this, it's going up 3 blocks and over 4, up 3 blocks and over 4, which really, if I'm looking at units, up 3 over 4 in this case is 40 to 70, which is 30. And then over, so this here is 30. Over from 0 to 40, so this is 40. And if I reduce this, I end up with 3 over 4. So that relationship of the blocks going up 3 blocks and then over 4 is really what this is going to reduce down to, because these both sides go up by 10. So on my graph, eggs goes up by 10 and cakes goes up by 10, which is why I could count the blocks. Not always, though. A lot of times you end up with 2 numbers you just reduce. But that's basically what it's asking you to do each time. So make sure you're paying attention to what it's asking for. So it says here to write it as a decimal or an integer. So if it's 3/4, that's 0.75 as a decimal. So this one, minutes per phone call. So again, if I think about going from like here up to here, I'm going up 20 to 50, so up 30, and then over 10. So 30 over 10 really reduces down to 3 over 1, which is just 3. So hopefully it feels like that's something you already understand pretty well, since it is something we covered last week. So it's supposed to be a review. You may not have noticed, but this is 7th grade because I picked the exact same skill, but I just did the 7th grade version. Anyway, hopefully that helps. You can come see me during asynchronous, so if it doesn't. Thanks.